Hello and welcome to another Sketchbook Club. This week we will be creating this beautiful tin of sardines using collage and paint. So for this module you will need an HB pencil, a rubber, you'll need your size 1 and size 6 paintbrushes, a set of watercolours and a pair of scissors and some coloured pencils. You will also need some sparkly things or old maps and books for collage. You'll need a sheet of tracing paper, a glue stick and optionally some gouache paints. So the first thing to do is to print out your reference sheets and instructions. Then, looking carefully at all the different sardine tin designs, start to draw your tin. Copy any lettering, boats or all the little squirrely tin opening devices that you like the look of. With lettering, my tip is to faithfully copy a style you like. See each letter as a shape to be reproduced rather than written, if that makes sense. And don't forget, the more wobbly and the more inaccurate, the more charming your painting will be. Work really faintly at first and then go over your lines firmer as you become more confident about them. When you are happy with your pencil composition, it's time to add your sardines. Do this by drawing over the sardine image on your reference sheet. It's the really big fish. Press firmly with your pencil. You can just draw the head section or all of the fish if you're going to top and tail them in the tin. Then turn it over and position it where you want the first sardine on the tin. Scribble firmly over the back to reveal the image on your page. It might be a good idea to draw over your sardine with a pencil before repeating this transfer technique for the next fish behind it. There's no need to draw over the transfer sheet again. It should work 4 or 5 times. And layering them one behind the other, carefully position your transfer sheet as you go. And if you go wrong, don't worry, just rub it out and start again. By drawing over each fish as you go, it will be clearer which fish is where, as I found it all a bit confusing. Once all the fish are transferred and you're happy with their positions on the page, you're ready to start your painting. So taking your watercolours and mixing a good strong colour by mixing your size 6 brush round and round with lots of water in the palette, start to paint the background colours first. I'm using a nice dark colour so the sardines will really stand out. I chose to mix a little bit of white gouache with my watercolours to make a more solid pale background for my tin, but of course you could just use watery watercolours if you prefer. When painting around the lettering or the fiddly bits of the images, remember you're painting a base coat, so don't worry too much about being too precise as you're going to paint them over afterwards. Continue painting in your base coats on the tin. I tend to leave any shading for when the paint is dry using coloured pencils, but feel free to paint in the shadows or details in paint if you prefer. With the lettering, make sure the paint is nice and thick. And if you're going over lettering, remember you can always paint a little bit of white gouache if you go over the edges. Now, you could use some gouache paint if you'd rather for some of the more thicker items like the lettering. You can always paint over it later as well, so don't worry too much about the fiddly squirrely bits. Use your size 1 brush and don't worry too much about the lettering being wobbly, as this will appeal, I promise, to the charm of your illustration. Continue painting all the details and any of the fish you're not going to cover in collage, remembering that most of the details we'll add in paper. Now the collage. I've put together a few collage kits on my website for you. But really anything goes, old maps, glittery paper, even bits of old music or newspapers. And also sequins. They really are lovely for eyes and embellishments on the fish. The collage elements make a really stunning image. It just sort of makes the picture come alive. My top tip for collage is to place some tracing paper over the area you wish to collage and draw carefully around the shape. Then position the tracing paper over the collage paper and cut out carefully. This way it will fit perfectly. If using a foil or sweet wrapper, use this method, cutting out your shape carefully, making sure the wrapper stays firmly in place when you're cutting it out. Then, what you're going to do once it's all cut out is to gently slide the foil over the glue stick to secure it firmly in place. Next, you're going to take some gouache paint. Paint over any waves or details that you've covered up with your sweet wrapper or foil using your gouache paint. Watercolour paints just won't be thick enough to cover the foil, I'm afraid. It might take a few layers, but the effect will be well worth it. So continuing in collage, work in layers. Continue to add pieces such as fins and small items on top of the fish behind. If you want to draw over or paint the sardines details onto the collage, simply transfer again over the top. That way you should be able to see guidelines, albeit quite faintly, so that you can paint or draw in any details such as fish scales or details on the sardines following the reference. Next, the best thing to do before you start anything else is to rub out all your pencil lines. Then you're ready to start with your coloured pencils. Make sure they're nice and sharp and start to define your image. Add shading around the tin and also any additional lettering. You could also add your fish scales and features to your sardines too. Next, you might also like to add some white gouache, just highlighting some of the tin areas and a little bit of shine on the bottom of the tin or around the fish scales. Literally anything goes for this. I even found some fluorescent paint which I added to some of the fish. So do feel free to really make this your own. Now, if you want to, using PVA or craft glue, you might like to add some sequins, sticking them on for eyes or anywhere else you feel like it. And there you have it, your sardine tin masterpiece. Can you see why it's one of our favourites? Everyone's is always so different when I do this in my studio, Sketchbook Club. So I really cannot wait to see how yours turns out. Please share your masterpieces using the hashtag Sketchbook Club Sardines so we can all see them. Have fun, happy collaging. I can't wait to see them all.